Welcome back, friends. I am your host, Ronnie Calla, here today with the beautiful Tamara Rose, founder of the Divine Success Method, creator of the Divine Self-Mastery Program, and also my sister. If this is your first time joining us, Tamara has been guiding women to break free from patriarchal paradigms for over 15 years, and this is where we get to hear her exclusive expertise. So if you're someone who is driven, introspective, maybe a bit of an overachiever, done with the way we've been taught to succeed by pushing, proving, exhaustion, sacrifice, this is for you. So let's dive in. Tamara, one thing I want to hear about today just one, maybe multiple. You have this magical intuition, and I would love to hear the story of when you turned a Volvo into a Porsche. That was something we did not get to last week, and I would love to kick off the episode with that story from you.
Wow. How do we want to unpack that story? A Volvo to a Porsche. I think we have to back up just a sec in that storyline, because this was right when I was moving from a very logic-based approach, and when I say logic-based, ontological, logic-based coaching, and moving into a more spiritual, intuitive guide, energetic coaching, and that was, God, how the fuck long ago was that?
Maybe 10 years ago?
Yeah, it was probably 10 years ago. And just so, I don't know if all the listeners know, but I was one of those people where I was like, first of all, I was anti-woo. So my journey to the woo was pretty impressive. I was anti-woo, and I didn't think I had intuition. And I think that's part of the larger piece of my story as well. I'm just very clear, this grounded type A, logic-based thinker was just I'm going to open myself up to the universe at the moment and say yes, keep guiding me. But I'm probably never going to have these, I have visions of the future. That's what my daughter wants, but that's probably never going to be me. And so I had met with a friend who was a psychic. She still is. And we had lunch, and she was telling me, oh, I'm going to write a book. I was like, what's the title of your book? And she said, Everyone's Psychic. And I was like, that's so funny. I'm not psychic. And, and she was like, oh no, you're psychic. And I was like, no. And this was the first time, and this was so pivotal. This was the first time somebody described that I was psychic, and it was that, so for listeners, and I think you and I have fielded so many questions like this, where people are like, oh, I'm having a spiritual awakening. I'm having these visions. I'm having these things. And we just we pigeonhole psychicness as, you're going to see things or you're going to hear things, and everybody wants to see things. And it's that's a whole can of worms. Cause when you're a seer, you don't see the thing. You see images of a story of a thing that you have to interpret. And it's sometimes not that easy. Right. And so it was this sense. And so on the path of meeting my friend, having this lunch, and her saying everybody's psychic, and me discovering that I was a knower. And, now that when we teach it, it's very easy to break it down for people. Mm-hmm. There's knowers and there's feelers. And you could be both also. And there's other ways to receive. There's thousands.
There's 5 or 6 main ones.
Yeah. And then when you start really honoring them, they get wild, and you get your intuition everywhere. And now I smell energy, and it's this whole fucking thing. I don't necessarily recommend people receive all of the things all the time. It's just a little overwhelming. Anyways, so I just started to explore the knowing. And what is the knowing? And I think a lot of analytical people are knowers, because that's also how the brain is already naturally working. Mm-hmm. And so that's how we kind of guide people. And so in the knowing, right, is where the journey of this Volvo to Porsche started to unfold. By the way, which one are you?
Which one am I? I'm the one that you're here, clairaudient. And for a while, I didn't know the difference between a knower and a clairaudient, because I think the difference between you and me is you just know it, and you just know it. You don't have to hear the message. But for me, I hear the the thought or the message, and it's sometimes my voice and it's sometimes another voice.
Oh,
And for a while it was difficult to distinguish, is this just a thought that my ego is having? Is this just a thought that's crossing my brain, or is this like an actual intuitive hit that's coming to me right now?
yeah. And that's, to me, that's wild. Okay.
Mhm.
I remember I had a house. I'm gonna I'm gonna tell another story. Had a housemate once. She was like, "Well, the voice in your head." I'm like, "I don't have a voice in my head."
Mhm.
She was like, "There's no like conversation in your head." I'm like, "What are you talking about?"
Yeah. Not only, yeah, not everyone has a voice in their head. That was wild for me to hear too. And not everyone can picture things in their head too. I saw this example, and this all goes back to like how you receive your intuition too. Is like I saw this example of some people, when like if you say picture an apple, some people may picture the word apple in their head. Some people may picture like nothing, like a black
Mhm,
blank space. Some
mhm.
people may picture like a fully formed apple and it's red and it's this and it's that. And some people may, oh, you can see that fully.
I
Okay.
see everything fully in my brain.
Okay. And then some people may only see like a blob, like maybe like an outline or a blob of an apple. And
No,
it's
mine
like
was
the,
red. It was shiny. I had it as soon as you said apple. It was like right there for me.
okay. Yeah. So it's interesting because there's like a spectrum of
Mhm.
people and how they can picture that, and how, and it coincides probably with the way that they receive their intuition, whether they're a visionary person.
Well, and I think that's also the thing is like all of these ways that we receive intuition grow, right? So it's not like
Mhm.
we're born with one or we have this one gift when we're born. It's kind of like how open are you and how
Mhm.
willing are you? And that's usually the key to like growing them. But yeah,
Mhm.
so I don't have any audience whatsoever. There's never voices. There's no, and I don't know if I never have. It's just like, since Vipassana, there's a lot of stuff I just has calmed my reality in a huge
Yeah.
way. And so I couldn't tell you, was it before that or was it not, or, whatever. I've
That's
never
so
had,
funny.
yeah. So if you're listening, you could tell us which ones you are. So I
Yeah,
see, so I can,
comment and tell us which one you resonate with most. We'll go into, I think later in the episode we'll go into like all the five or six different
mm,
types that we
yeah,
can recognize.
yeah. So yeah, so we'll go back to nowhere. So I discovered I was a knower through this conversation with my friend, and then what was really interesting is continually starting to honor the knowing. And if you're a knower, I think it's really interesting because it's very quick. Just like, it's like a picture of the apple is right there for me, right? Like it's very quick actually knowing things. And there's no processing. There's no when you really lean into intuition, there's no explanation of it. And it's usually just like the guiding thing for you. And so here we were. I was pregnant. So yeah, that would have been 10 years ago. I was pregnant. We were having a baby come, or maybe Cece had just come. I can't remember. And we had an electric car, and it was one of these things where, like, in Colorado, like, it's fine if you live downtown and you never leave downtown, right? Like, if you're like, but like, Colorado is about going to the mountains, and it's about, and I was like, that worked for California. I was
Didn't
like,
you
now
take
we,
didn't you take a road trip up the coast and you couldn't make it like a few hours without having to stop and charge it?
fuck yeah, I've had some wild ideas, and I usually get people on board with my wild ideas. So, yeah, that one was hysterical. We took the lead. I was like, "Oh, it's Thanksgiving. We have I don't know if we were working or what." And I was like, "We're gonna go to Napa. We should take, his friend Brian had friends who lived in Napa, and it was like, let's go from San Diego to Napa.
Hmm.
And we could take the leave. I'm like, we're not doing anything anyways. I don't remember, like, I can't recall. He's like, you only go 80 miles and then you got to get a charge. And I was like, sounds like a fun adventure. Like,
It'll be fine.
what else are I'm like, we can like stop at coffee shops and like hang out in little towns, which we did, but I think it took us 3 days to
Oh my
get from San
God.
Diego
To
to
get how many miles?
I don't know. Somebody's gonna have to tell us. I have no idea. Alexa, how many miles is it from San Diego to Napa? Alexa will tell us.
You're gonna activate everyone's.
Napa is 525
500
miles
miles.
away by car.
3
500.
days to go 500 miles.
Oh yeah, it was absolutely ridiculous. And there were these stretches. So this was probably 11 years ago or 12 years. There were these stretches where the infrastructure hadn't been built for all the electric vehicles.
Yeah.
So, we were like driving with our fingers crossed to get to where we needed to go. And we couldn't take like the 101 the whole way. We had to take like it was like you can't take the major freeway. You had to take like a side road, and like it was hysterical. And kudos to my ex-husband at the time. We were newly married, or in the engagement process. So he was like all game for my stupid ideas. And I thought it was really fun. Anyhow, so that was the Leaf story. So we had the Nissan Leaf. We're now in Colorado, and it's like, just to think about doing that, to like go up to the mountains, you're like, what an idiot. And still not the infrastructure, and I think, I don't think
Only
that
recently in the last maybe 3-4 years.
100%, 100%. I think Tesla's always kind of had the infrastructure, and this was like a Leaf. You don't have infrastructure.
Mhm.
And so the homework process for my ex-husband was, I'm very analytical. So I'm like, well, I need you to we need a new car. Here are the parameters. It's got to be this. I want it used. It's going to be this mileage. It's got to be, this, under this price, under this mileage, under this price, it's got to hit all these boxes. And I was like, and we're looking for something that would be like a wagon, SUV. I don't know. It's like something
Like
that's
hatchback SUV
not
type.
a sedan. Yeah. And I was like, and it's got to be pristine on the inside. I want somebody who really took care of a fucking car. And
And
he's like,
this is when you were really playing with the energy of money too, and like luxury, and like what is that feeling and what is that experience for you, right?
and that's really key, because I was playing with what is luxury. I was playing with, I want more luxury. What is luxury? What does luxury feel like? I want a more luxurious lifestyle. And I was consistently asking the universe about that. Okay. Which is key, because we're taking a Volvo and we're turning it into a Porsche, my friends. Okay. So, here we are. I'm like playing with luxury. So I'm like,
also, sorry, I don't mean to interrupt, but was this also the time where you were making about 1,500 a month?
oh yeah, I don't think I was making any money. I'm trying to remember. I wasn't making any money. And I don't think he was making, there was no money. We didn't have it, so it was very clear, these are the parameters.
Yeah.
Of this.
And I want to say that too, because it's not like looking at your camera and your background right now and your life in the mountains, and it wasn't always like this. So this was 10 years ago when you were making 1,500 a month. You didn't have your kid yet. You were living in downtown Denver and
Outskirts. Yeah.
Outskirts, and there wasn't this built life and established life that you have now.
100%. There was not, money was tight for sure. I was like, we could do another episode about houses. I mean, this was the time I bought a $200,000 house, and that thing was terrible.
Oh my gosh, I remember cleaning that with you. There was cat pee that I had to
was terrible.
Mop up all over the place. Oh yeah.
It was just not my cat. Yeah, it was other people's animals.
When you bought it, when you first bought it.
It was disgusting. But and we flipped to that, it was that was a full flip. And so I've always, but again, going back to previous conversation, I've always been resourceful. I've always said, well, it's not what I have, it's how do I get the thing, right?
Yeah.
So I was playing with this energy of luxury, and what is luxury and what is VIP living, and I wanted to upgrade, and that's usually, especially when we talk to people about money, that's usually where we start, is get an energy on it, because the frequency and the currency of the world is energy. It's actually not money. And so, I was playing with these energies, and so Brian does his research, and he comes back with 2 cars in all of Colorado area that could meet my parameters. And this is so funny. One of them was a Saturn View. I don't even think Saturn is around, or Views are around. They don't make that car anymore.
I think I was looking at a Saturn for my first car.
Okay.
Do
they make Saturns anymore?
No.
No,
When
okay.
I was gonna buy it for my first car like 8 years ago, they weren't making it anymore.
That was
And
the
that's why I didn't get it because they don't
Mhm.
have the parts or the whatever. So,
Right. So I'm like, well, it was a newer car, but I was like, I think they were like going on business, and I was like, like, how do we manage that? Like, I'm not quite sure. And but it was a Saturn View and then the Volvo. And this Volvo, we were living in Denver, and the Volvo was up in Boulder. I mean, Boulder wasn't that far, thank God, from it wasn't like it was in, Summit County. And so he's like, okay, well, I have these two cars. And I'm looking at them on paper, and I'm like researching them on the computer, and I'm like asking all these questions. I'm like, all right, like, but I'm not really, I was very like, like, none of them had like juice, right? And so it's like, okay, well, between these two, which one am I being pulled to? And the Volvo was so funny too. It was like this like wagon hipster mobile. Like it's something that you would see like some hipster do drive. You know what I mean? It was like
hmm
kind of vintage or whatever. I was like, I am not a soccer Volvo. I was like dealing with myself. Volvo soccer mom. I was like, oh,
hmm I mean,
Christ.
now you're a soccer mom, but not 10
I
years
mean,
ago.
yeah, I'm the Mercedes soccer mom. There's a difference. I was like, oh my God. I mean, I was having a real identity crisis too, because you're also like, have the kid and you're like, what am I doing with my life? Do you know what I mean? And you're like,
Yeah.
now I'm a
No,
mom.
no offense to current Volvo soccer moms
No
at
offense.
all.
No. I mean, honestly, I might buy a Volvo for the next one, but it would be a
Oh,
new
really?
one. And it would be the one, like, I think you can go to the Volvo factory and you can test drive your car, and they like pay for your trip, and then they schlep your car back for you. So,
Oh, I have heard of that. Okay.
yeah. So I made it.
That's the experience. That's the VIP
That's a
experience.
new, that's a, totally, totally. So I'm like not super lit up. I'm like, I don't know. And at that time, I had what I called my psychic friends network. I mean, I could phone a psychic. I had all my friends. I could pick up the phone and hit a psychic on like
Uh-huh.
all of my friends. And so again, this one friend who told me that I was a knower, right? And she was writing this book. I was like, look, what the hell? I got these two options. These are terrible. I need to get a new car. Like, what? I'm like, what are you getting pinged with? And I was getting pinged with a Volvo. And she's like, I'm really getting the Volvo. And I'm like, me too. This is fucking bullshit, though. Like, who wants I don't know why I was so turned off by this, like, whole experience.
There's gonna be someone who has a Volvo who's a soccer mom listening to this, and she's gonna be like, "What the fuck,
Like,
man?
what
I
a
feel so
bitch.
called out right now."
That's right. She's gonna be like, what a bitch. It was an older Volvo, right? I don't remember what age it was, but it was older. So I go, okay, well, let's set up a test drive. We'll go to Boulder. We'll have the neighbor watch CC while she's like doing nap time, or we put her down for bed or some shit like that. And we were juggling, and I said, let's go up and look at it. And I remember being like, I don't want to go look at this car. Like my
hmm
intuition was pulling, and I was like, meh, it's not super exciting.
Yeah.
So intuition is like laying breadcrumbs, right? So I always follow, like, since this time I just started following intuition. I was like, look, I don't know what it's about, but like we're gonna start following breadcrumbs. And I'm questioning the whole Volvo thing. So I'm like, Brian, who do we know? Brian, who can we call? Brian, who else could chime in on this Volvo situation? I even had him stop at like Dairy Queen on the way up to like the dealership because I was stalling. I was like,
hmm
we gotta figure some shit out. And he goes, oh, my dad's old next door neighbor was a used car dealer. Let me just call him up. And I was like, great. In California. So we're in Colorado. He's in California. I go, great. And he talks to him, and the guy's like, dude, these two cars are totally overpriced. And we're like, this is Colorado. Of course they're overpriced. They're like SUV, like, wait, whatever. Like,
hmm
this is not California. And this is what he says next, right? So they're like talking for a bit. They're like going through everything. He goes, look, what are your parameters on the car? And so Brian gave mileage and cost and everything. He goes, well, if those are your parameters, I have a Porsche Cayenne I'm selling. And I was like, and I looked at him and I was like, hey now. And that was the funniest conversation. Like, so we looked at the car. Not it. I was not inspired. I was inspired by a Porsche Cayenne. That's what I was fucking inspired by, right? And it was the strangest conversation because here's this guy who goes, well, I had these are your parameters. I got a Porsche Cayenne. And then my ex-husband goes, we can't afford a Porsche Cayenne. And I go, he just said they were in the fucking parameters. Like, what are you? He's like, well, I don't know if I'm comfortable with a Porsche. I was like, what is going on?
Mm-hmm.
And so, because this was a few day conversation, I'm just working out logistics in my head. I'm like, I'm getting the car. I'm going to work through getting the car. I'm going to have people like test drive the car. And then I'm going to have somebody drive it out from California. I've already worked out all the parameters. Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? And Brian was dealing with himself. And this is where we get real weird.
Mm-hmm.
We just get really weird, right?
Because it was the same price as the Volvo, right?
It was within whatever our fucking price range was and the mileage. It was whatever that was. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Mm-hmm.
But it's because of the label or the label of luxury that's like I can't afford that.
100%. And that was really like I saw it in real time. He's always been a good mirror for me to see things in real time. He was like, well, if I go pick up Cece like at play dates and I drop her off at preschool, I'm the guy with the Porsche Cayenne. I'm like,
Mm.
isn't that cool? I don't know if I want to be that guy. I was like, oh,
Oh.
you see what I mean? And I was like, you got to get on board real quick because we're getting the Porsche. Like, deal with. Do you want me to give you like you want a beater? You want like a Toyota Corolla from 1989? Like what the fuck do you want? I don't. I'm
Yeah.
like I didn't get it. And like that's the thing with especially like you have a spouse. If you're constantly upgrading, they got to upgrade with you. So yeah, so we worked out the logistics. But here was the other thing he said. He goes, well, wait. I go. When the Porsche, I was like, guess what my intuition's pulling for now? And he's like, how does that work? He's like, your intuition was just Volvo. I'm like, my intuition was Volvo because I didn't know a Porsche was on the table. Now that I know a
Mm-hmm.
Porsche is on the table, my intuition is Porsche.
Mm-hmm.
Like, doesn't that sound fun? And that was like the first introduction to luxury car. That was like the first step into luxury experience. That was like, that was the first one. It was really, really amazing. And so the way that I describe it is like, there are 80 million options that you could pull from at any one time, but we limit it with our own brain.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you know the energy of something and you're playing in the energy of something and you keep choosing the energy of something, the universe can kind of grab another option and give it to you. You have to be open,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so in that openness and that knowingness of what's on your path, our path is never like, wee, it's like beep, 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 like all around and swirly. And so that was like the most phenomenal example that I could probably ever give anybody about intuition.
Mm-hmm. Because I think this stemmed from last week talking about the raft situation. Like, if there's 20 different rafts that all look the same, then how do you know which one to choose? And your intuition's calling for all of them,
Yeah.
then, like, which one do you get on? But it from your story, it's like just pick the one that's pulling to you, and you can always change it. Like, it's not like a set in stone, it has to be this one, it's only this one, but it may be guiding you on the path to something bigger.
Yeah, 100%. And I think, like, look, it wasn't intuition that was giving me three car options. Do you see what I mean? It was
Yeah.
like, okay, logic system, this is what we're looking for. I was telling the universe what our parameters were, right? And I was also telling the universe I wanted luxury, and the
Mm-hmm.
universe and my higher self and everything was like, okay, well, we've got these two. And now, if we have you in the consideration process, because it makes no sense long enough, you're going to call that guy in California and he's going to have an answer for you. And so it wasn't like the Porsche was another third option,
Yeah.
right? It was that, oh, that is the option to
Yeah.
align with everything I want, right? And so I think what we do mostly is we just get stuck in logic too much. We
Mm-hmm.
just get stuck in figuring it out and we get stuck in logic. Like, and that's exactly where Brian went immediately, right? And how many
Mm-hmm.
of us would say, oh, but a Porsche, if something happens, it's more expensive. All right. So trust that it's all going to work out.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't know what to tell you. You know,
Yeah.
it's like, if that's the thing that's going to hold you back, you're going to be stuck a long time. And it
Yeah.
was, again, like, and it wasn't, the next car after that was like a huge Mercedes. I say huge because it was the 450 model. It had like just this huge back or whatever. I don't know. It was like, it was bigger. We could stick the kid back. Everybody was super comfortable in that one.
Hmm.
And we had a huge trunk space. So, and then I found out I loved Mercedes. So it wasn't like I had to pigeonhole myself forever in a Porsche, but it was like the next upgrade.
Hmm. And it's so interesting because one reason I wanted to dive into this topic specifically today is like the last two episodes we've been talking about fear and the fears that hold us back, especially
Mhm.
as women, and like inside of bypassing your fears, it's intuition, trust, and action. And so then what does it actually look like in real time to have the ping of intuition, to trust it, and then take action? And I think this is a great story to bring to the surface. Especially, I want to reiterate, like, you were making $1,500 a month. You weren't like living in
Maybe,
luxury, like maybe
maybe I
you.
was making 1,500 a month. Maybe. I don't
Yeah.
know.
Like, it's
Yeah.
not like you had the means, quote unquote,
Mm-mm.
to like make this like big leap of luxury, if you will, but it was about really cultivating the energy of the thing that you
Mhm.
wanted to experience. So,
Yeah.
inside of intuition, trust, and action, and getting resourceful and making this leap, like, can you share a little bit about what that was like for you? I don't want to say what that process was like, because like
Yeah.
processes, but can you share a bit about what that was like for you?
Well, I think it's like looking in reality. And I don't, we get stuck in the story in our head, just like Brian, right? Brian was like this clear example in front of us going, can we afford that? And I was like, it's the same price. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I don't understand. So it wasn't about can we afford it, right? It was the same, but it hit our parameters. Well, what if something happens? I'm like, do we trust that, like, I was like, look, I'm building this muscle of luxury and energy, and like, do we trust, like, where, I don't know what to tell you about that either, right? Like, it's so we talk ourselves out of it rather than looking in reality, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so the process is really just like in real, like, for example, in reality right now, I'm doing my kitchen remodel. It's like that and my windows. It's like the last piece. And then I'm going to sell the house, right?
Mm-hmm.
And, this house is going from, I bought it at 1.1 million. It was my first $1 million house purchase. And I'm going to sell it over 3 million, right? So it's a 2 million gain, more than a 2 million gain. And, but this is what I want people to understand. To get that 2 million gain, I know that the house has to have things done to it. I know I want to sell it and say everything has been touched from head to toe.
Mm-hmm.
Everything has been upgraded from top to bottom, in to out. Everything's been upgraded. And I had put it on the market last year. And I had to say, oh, but the kitchen wasn't and the windows weren't. I had to
Mm-hmm.
say those two things. Okay. And that's not a full 100% inside to out upgrades, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so for those of you who don't know, I've done solar, new roof, new gutters, new deck, new stairs. I've done all the bathrooms, master bathroom, bedrooms, carpet, paint, flooring, fireplaces. I've got two. I added up another laundry room. We went from two dining rooms to one dining room and a mud room. I mean, this place has been tweaked out to the max, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when I went to sell and it was like, and it's also in the mountains, to say, but the windows, but the kitchen, like, those are big things that, like, when people want to move into like a multi-million-dollar house, they don't actually want to think about it. And nobody wants to deal with fucking renovations, not in this county, not one person. Okay. So I know that those two things are going to make me more money.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to do everything in my power to ensure those two things happen. Right. And so when I'm looking at it, it's like, I want to explain this in a way that people really get. This is an investment and I'm going to turn over 2 million. So I want everybody listening, what would you do for 2 million if you knew it was coming? and like, let's say your 2 million check is coming in 3 to 4 months. What would you do to get that 2 million check in 3 to 4 months?
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, oh, will I go through a kitchen remodel? Fuck yeah, I will. Will I go through dealing with all the window shit? Yeah, fuck yeah, I will. Will I stage this house like it's the best looking thing under the sun? Fuck yeah, I will. Will I invest before I do it? Yeah, fuck yeah, I will. Right. And so the investment part right now has me like putting stuff on credit cards because it's
Mm-hmm.
like, it's all going to come back. Like, I'm not going to go clean out a bunch of accounts if it's all going to come back. So, right now is not the time for me to be stressing about how much balance is on credit cards. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I have enough credit where I could, like, if somebody could take all of my credit cards, I could buy a house with as much credit as I have on credit cards. Do you know what I mean? Like, I could go buy a house. That's how much credit I have. So I'm using it for my kitchen. But if I get stressed out about the process right now, I'm not trusting that I'm using this to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's actually very logic based. That's a very logic based approach, right? I'm looking in reality and going, well, I'm going to do this really expensive kitchen upgrade, and then I'm going
Mm-hmm.
to do all the windows. And how am I going to pay for it? And to go, well, I can't because I don't have cash is absolutely ridiculous. To go, oh, I've got all of this credit. Might as well use some of it. And then something magical happened. United was like, you've spent so much money, so much money. It was like doing my kitchen, like it was like getting on the United card. They're like, you have 10,000 bonus points you could use right now on anywhere you want to go. And I was like,
Fantastic.
well, I feel like we should go on a trip while that kitchen gets done, Cece. I was like looking at Mexico last night. I was like, ooh.
Uh-huh.
My point is it's a very logic based approach.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't look at the logic of fear. There's actually no logic based in fear. Okay? When people are in fear, they're going to show you all the ways that it's not going to work out, all their fear-based patterning, and that's going to stop them from getting to where they want to go.
Mm-hmm.
When you're in reality and you're looking at how all the pieces fit together, you're going to find magical like results and processes that you didn't see before.
Mm-hmm.
And like that's the little tipping point. And so you could be like my ex-husband, like about a Porsche Cayenne, or you could be like me, like we're investing to make this house top to bottom 100% dialed in, and then I'm going to sell it for over 3.
Yeah. And I want to back up too because when your house didn't sell last year, you didn't go, "Oh, it's not selling. Let me take it off the market and like not do anything about it. Let me give up." Like there was no sense of like it's not working, let me give up. There was an interest in, okay, well, what is it going to take to
Mhm.
get the house to sell? If
Mhm.
it's not working out the way that I want it right now, what is it going to take for it to work out the way that I want it to?
100%.
And
Mhm.
then you got interested in like, oh, it's the kitchen and the windows. And that's what really sparked it.
Yeah, and I had always known that I knew that because the kitchen wasn't the 1990s kitchen. The kitchen was like the 2005 kitchen. You know, like they put some granite in, they like kind of did something. It just wasn't 1990s. It didn't have like green tile like the rest of the house, you
Yeah.
know. And so I just knew, I'm like, look, my real estate agent, and I've for background, just so if you're in real estate, you can come for me if you want. But I got my real estate license when I was 23. I worked for the number one home seller in San Diego County when I was 23. That was my first job out of college. Then I worked for new home builders. I bought my first property at 23. I had 4 by 28. You know, I know what not to do, and then I know what to do, right? Because I've been so inundated. I have made And then I bought this $1 million home in 2020, and then I bought the beach house in 2020
Mm-hmm.
and sold the beach house, and now I'm going to sell this house. And I've been in this $1 million market, and I was marketing $1 million homes in when I was like in my early mid 20s, right?
Mm-hmm.
I will say this. I probably have the most vast knowledge of how to market $1 million home or how to sell a multi-million-dollar home. What I don't enjoy is real estate agents telling me we should just cut the price. We should just cut the price. We should. And I was like, and that's what I got from this last agent. And I was like, we did it once. We did it once. And I said, I will do this once. And that's the only time I'm going to do it. And then my conversation with her was, look, this should be selling for 3 million, over 3 million, which was our original list price was 3.2.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, you agreed with it. You looked at the market. You said that's how we should go. To now discount it, I'm going to do it once, but we're not doing that again. Because what I'm interested in, and this is the conversation, what do I got to do to get it to sell for 3.2?
Mm-hmm.
That's my conversation. So when I'm talking to you as my real estate agent, what do I got to do?
Mm-hmm.
Do I got to stage a room differently? Do I got to add something? Like, what do I got to do? No, it
Mm-hmm.
looks great. I have opinions about that person too. So I'm just saying, okay. So I'm looking at what do I got to do to get the thing? Always, 100%. And I just don't think enough people are looking at that. They're
Mm-hmm.
looking at circumstances making decisions. And I'm looking at like, I can fucking create anything in this reality. Show me which molecules I got to move around to get the thing I want. That's what
Mm-hmm.
I.
It's a very unlimited, limitless perspective that you look at life through.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not normal. I get it.
No,
But
it's
like,
it's not normal.
it's
If
not.
you want to learn it, come work with us. But it's not normal that every human really
It's
does that.
way more fun though. Like it's way more fun. It's way more fulfilling, right? It's like everything's on the other side over here. This is what we incarnated for. Just stop fucking settling for shit, people.
Totally. Well, I want to also dive into the different types of intuition
Ooh,
and different ways people can be guided to these decisions and pathways and pings.
yeah.
So we talked about you're a knower, I'm a clairaudient, so I hear it. And then there's like three or four different ones. You mentioned taste. What I forget what the
Oh,
clair.
smell. So clear. So clairaudient is hearing. Clairvoyant is seeing. Clair uh, sentient is feeling. Clairsalient is smelling. And you have claircognizant is knowing, right? And all the clairs are like, you know, the gift of knowing something or like intuitively guided by blah, 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 right?
Hmm.
And so they all do start to overlap and coincide. So if you have it, like if you're strongly pulled in one, you can be guided in all of them, or you can open yourself up to more. Like that's just, I want everybody to know that. So like, it's not like I just get knowing. I don't just get knowing. I do like feel like if I'm doing enough hands-on healing work, which I don't do so much anymore, but when at like the peak of my hands-on healing practices or whatever that I was in trainings, I could feel something in my body that would guide me to something in somebody else's body. So like if I had an older woman on the table, I could feel her hip in my hip, or I could
Hmm.
feel her knee in my knee. And that was my guidance, right? But I would also just intuitively know where to move my hands. And so the practice of like using all of the gifts to guide you with whatever you're doing, I think is the easiest, right? Where you're not pigeonholing yourself and saying, I am this way and I don't have this thing, right?
Hmm.
Because equally speaking, one of the things about like renovating a house that I love so much is I can see the renovation. I can see the change in the house. So I can see if a wall is removed, what would be there. And I can see like the kitchen. I sit in the kitchen and I can already see the renovation in my head, right? And I'm like so in love with the renovation. I'm like grateful for the kitchen, but like so in love with what's coming next. Um, so it's using all of those, if you will,
Hmm.
instead of pigeonholing yourself into one, but to start with a practice of which one am I, right?
Hmm. And primarily, there's knowing and feeling, and then the other ones are more
Secondary.
secondary.
Yeah, because I think they're also harder to train.
Mm-hmm.
So, like feeling something can be harder to train as well. And knowing, like, all of them, okay, all of them have their nuances, but like let's dive into the top two. Okay, so knowers and feelers. So as a knower, your logical brain is going to talk you out of things, and your intuitive brain is going to pull you into things. So, you know, you'll know the dance because you'll be like, am I trying to explain this? If
Mm-hmm.
something doesn't make logical sense, it's going to be like, that's the path, that's the intuition, that's the pull, right? That's the thing that's next for you. As a feeler, a lot of times people will feel like, what we train people in is like, can you feel a yes? Can you feel a no in your body? Like, can you feel, no's are usually heavy and yeses are lighter. And so you're like, that can be an intuitive guide. However, some people are feeling other people's energy. So, are you feeling somebody else's energy? Is this your full energy? Are you asking questions that like guide your intuition? Or are you looking for all the right answers? Intuition is like,
Mm-hmm.
right. There's like no right answer to the Volvo, Saturn, Porsche. There's no right answer there. Okay. There's
Mm-hmm.
no right path. There's like, well, what do you want? Like, you're the creator, right? So I, and then with clairaudient, right? A lot of people, there's like an inner ear, and then there's like your negative voice talking to you. So you have to be trained in like, is that my intuition or my negative voice pulling me?
Mm-hmm.
You know, and it's like, does it sound like you? Does it sound like somebody else? Like, if it sounds like your mother and it's negative, it's probably not intuition. That's probably past patterning of your mother telling you what not to do. Do you see what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? And then when you go to like visions, right, or people who are clairvoyant, um, the visions can be really challenging because you have to interpret a vision. Like, I remember getting a psychic reading one time, and it was like, I see a praying mantis walking down this red carpet and like lights flashing and da 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 da. And she had to interpret that shit for me. And I was like, the fuck does the praying mantis have to do with me? I was actually thinking about that like last night or this morning, for apparently for this call.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just like, am I the praying mantis? Am I the one on, like, who's determining what that is, right? And so then there's this interpretation that has to happen. So you have to get really skilled in it. And
Mm-hmm.
so there's something really unique and cool about a knower like me, because I know, and it's very quick. I know, and it's very quick. And I use all the senses, and I know, and it's very quick.
Mm-hmm.
And I will tell people this: if you want to get trained in your intuition, start doing puzzles. It's like the stupidest thing. But like, I go sit down, I told you I was like at the library. I love
Mm-hmm.
my library. They have puzzles. There's always one puzzle. Nobody's sitting at the puzzle table. And I walk over. And so the intuition lets my hand pick a piece and puts it right in the exact spot. I'm looking at all the colors. So I'm using literally all of my intuition on a fucking puzzle. And I love that shit. I
And
love
you're learning not to do it the right way or the wrong way because you may not do the borders first and
that.
then the other pieces. Like you may start with something different
Isn't it
that,
weird, ladies and gentlemen, and theys and thems and gays? Ronnie knows all about my puzzle skills.
oh yeah,
Several pieces. How
I
many
mean,
times?
I've been homeworked tasked to do puzzles multiple times. So,
Yeah, it's not about edges first. Sometimes it's not about edges first, and sometimes it's not about, it's like, what else could it be about,
mhm,
And I can sit down and like in 20 minutes put in 30 pieces, It's like,
mhm.
you can move that fast. And that's why I love it. It's like my they're like, what kind of superhero do you want to be? I'm like, a puzzle fucking magician. They're like, you don't want to fly? I'm like, I don't know. I want to win all the puzzle contests
Mm, mhm.
and
That'd
fly.
be a cool superhero trick. I also want to distinguish, so two questions.
Hmm.
Number one, how would somebody know what type of intuitive they are if they don't feel very like well versed in following their intuition?
Um, I always have people go back. because I think our intuition has spoken to us in the past and we weren't listening. And so I think
Mm-hmm.
that's like a good first question. Like, when did my intuition speak to me and I wasn't listening? Like, when did I intuitively know something was off in my past and I just didn't pay attention? And so you can say, and then from that point, you can say, did I feel something in my body? Was it a gut feeling? Did it just feel heavy? Or did I just know, like, I shouldn't do X, Y, and Z? And then I just didn't follow it. And I think that's like the first opening, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then I think you can do like little tips and tricks, which is like, ask. I always start with something that's like not important. Don't start with the important thing. Is my husband cheating on me? That's a very important question. You're going to be all fucked up on that answer. Trust me. You're like, is he cheating on me? Yes. It feels light in my body. It's a yes. Oh, he's not cheating on me because it feels light in my body. I'm like, you misinterpreted the message. Like that was,
Oh my
it was
gosh.
actually yes. And you screwed the pooch. Anyways, so you just go like, so it's starting on little things. And so I usually say things like, what's good for your body to eat? What's good for your body to drink? What kind of activity does your body want right now? And so then that also brings you into a deeper communion with your body in the process, which I think is actually pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
But start asking the questions and see if you're just knowing answers or see if you're feeling answers, and don't test it. This isn't about testing it. The second that you guys go to test your intuition, you're going to get all fucked up because in the background of it is doubt.
What do you mean testing? Say
Yeah.
more.
So my daughter goes, Mom, if you're so intuitive, how many fingers are behind my back? And I was like, go fuck yourself. That's not how this works, because she's doubtful of my intuition. And now I have to prove it. It's like doubt and proving all in the field. And I'm like, go fuck her. I ain't got time for this shit.
Mm-hmm.
But fuck if I'm not like I'll just be in my room and be like, Cece, what are you doing? How do you know? I'm like, cause I fucking know.
Or how many times are you like, Cece, did you brush your teeth this morning?
I did, Mom. I'm like, mm-hmm. So and I always go like this, if I go read the energy of the sink, what will the sink tell me? I don't tell her I'm checking her toothbrush because then bitch will wet it, you know. I'm like, if I go check, she's like, well, and then she'll give some long explanation. I was like, go brush your teeth again. Fucking
Hopefully
turd.
she doesn't listen to this episode.
She's not listening. She's not that interested in Mom.
Mm.
She's got bigger fish to fry, you know.
Oh,
But like you get that if you're testing somebody's intuition, you don't believe in it. And if
you
you're
don't
testing
trust
your
it.
own, you don't believe in it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not how you're going to get more intuition, by not
Mm-hmm.
believing in it. So it's more like you just keep trusting what's showing up, trusting what's showing up. Now you're in a deeper communion with
Mm-hmm.
you and your higher self and your intuition and your path and all the magic.
Mm-hmm. Okay, cool. And then the second thing I wanted to ask, I've spoken to people about different ways of receiving intuition that aren't through those senses. So, like, your TikTok feed can be like
Oh yeah.
messages from your intuition,
Yeah.
or people that you overhear on the street in conversations. Like, you can
Is that
use that as,
intuition or is that like guidance and law of attraction?
yeah, like guidance from the universe in some way.
Mhm.
Or like if you're I mean, I would say like if you're listening to this podcast, it's like guidance from the universe. It's law of attraction. It's the message you need to hear when you need to hear it. It's if
100%.
you overhear a conversation on the street, it's because there was something for you to hear in that conversation.
Mhm.
If you are seeing something on your Instagram, your TikTok, your YouTube, like there's a message that you need to hear inside of whatever's coming up. But how would you distinguish that guidance from intuition?
I think that intuition is this like divine connection between you, your higher self, and there's kind of this like a sacred portal, if you will,
Mm-hmm.
right? I think what you're talking about is ask and receive, which that's just opening yourself up to receiving, trusting everything coming to you is part of what there is to receive. So I mean, honestly, like it could be the same thing. Like as we distinguish it right now in this conversation, like that could be your intuition. I think usually intuition is like, how do I distinguish this information that I'm receiving? And it's
Mm-hmm.
like intuition is the how do I distinguish something for myself, right? And so there's like a breaking down of information to make heads or tails of it for yourself. And I think that's what mostly people are doing. So, but I think if you want to know, because like let's say, and it can be with your algorithm in your social media feeds, frankly, because on your algorithms, like attracts like. So whatever energy field you're in is what you're going to see on your algorithm. And whatever you're open to is what you're going to see on your algorithm. So, I know our algorithms are kind of similar, right?
Mm-hmm.
But they are different. My algorithm with somebody who is a raging Republican that voted for Trump, our algorithms are going to be completely different. Somebody who is, very deep into conspiracy theories. So, like attracts like for them, right? But they're not asking questions about their path. They're not directing the energy. And I think intuition can actually have you direct the energy and shift, move, and change the way you want to go. And I think that's more like things coming at you will show you what energy you're in. And you asking your intuition and working with it will actually guide the path. And so it's like this tool to tweak your reality. The intuition
Mm-hmm.
can be. If you so choose to use it that way, and if you so are willing to surrender, right? Because a Porsche didn't make any sense, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like Porsche didn't make any sense. And I will tell you, to sell my house in a few months, not one contractor or real estate agent thinks it makes sense to upgrade my kitchen or fix the windows. Not one person thinks that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
And they got lots of fucking opinions that they will tell me about on the goddamn phone with me without even seeing my house. It's usually some dude spouting off his opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways,
Then
that's the difference. Does that track?
it does track, yeah. And so it's like different ways of receiving guidance from the universe and how the way that the law of attraction and like attracts like is working for you.
Yeah. I mean, look, there are some things that show up in my field that I would say I don't like, or I don't want to deal with, or not a match. And I go, okay, well, why is this showing up? What
Mm-hmm.
is it about this that's showing up? And those questions illuminate more of my path and illuminate more of my learning and my building the muscle and my like being a stand for humanity. And I'm like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
okay, then that makes sense, right?
Because I don't think you would say that the contractors and real estate agents telling you you shouldn't sell the house or it's not going to help the selling of the house is your intuition.
No, that's like me looking at all of the industry and being like, why is everybody a fucking idiot? Why aren't they getting on my page? Why aren't they listening to the fact that I would like to sell it for over 3?
Mm-hmm.
I want it for 3.2 or 3.5. They're not getting on the same page with me.
Mm-hmm.
And what else does that mean? And what else well, I mean, I'm gonna piss a lot of people off, maybe, with the next thing I say. Because then I was like, why am I paying real estate agents so much money on these $1 million homes when I keep holding their hand? And what gets illuminated is I've been doing this since I was 23. I've been slaying $1 million homes since I was 23. I am like, I had my license. I know the ins and outs. I worked as a transaction coordinator. I know the contracts. I know the marketing. I'm like, I work for the #1 agent in San Diego County. Like that is a big fucking market. Okay. I'm like, why do I keep hiring an agent and then telling them what to do through the process? Holding their hand through the process, guiding them to, I was like, I'm over this. So this one's probably going to be for sale by owner. That's what's next. So, you got opinions about that? Go ahead, give them to me. But like, for sale by owner. And I researched everything about that and I leaned into everything about that. So my intuition isn't people telling me what to do. That's not my intuition. My intuition is like, again, you have to be skilled at receiving all the information and looking at your path on looking at what's next for you and what's right for you.
Hmm.
And
And
that's
it seems like the distinguishing of receiving all the information as well, so that you can distinguish, like, okay, there are fears here, this is my ego, there are judgments here, there are whatever here,
Mhm.
and then distinguishing what's intuition and what's pulling me to something bigger, and what's just like the information and like the dissemination and the sorting through of like everything you're receiving.
Yeah, and when you're new at like really following your path, you're gonna have fears and ego show up.
Hmm.
100%. The more you meditate, the more you lean in and trust, the more you understand there's nothing to be afraid of, the more you direct the energy, the more you play with the universe. I don't have fears and egos.
Hmm.
I don't. I'm like, look, universe, this is what we're creating.
Hmm.
It's go time.
It's so funny because the more that you open up to receiving as well, and like be able to clear and disseminate all of those judgments, fears, ego
Mhm.
things,
Yeah.
it opens up to more gifts, not just like the five or six that we're talking about, but like telepathy, for example. Like, I want to share a story because yesterday, me and my fiance, we went to Disney and I was sharing, there was this TikTok of this woman with her husband. She was like, oh my gosh, I was reading this thing on telepathy and I wanted to try it with my husband. And in my head, I was like yelling his name and he was in the other room and like I yell his name like three or four or five times and he doesn't respond. I'm like, oh, it doesn't work. And then he comes in and he's like, what are you yelling at me for? Like,
I
what was
saw
that?
that.
And
That
she
shit
was
was
like crying.
awesome.
That
Yeah.
was awesome. She was
Yeah.
crying. She's like, oh my God, it actually worked. Like, we're so connected. And so I was telling Natalie, my fiance, about that. And I was like, I feel like we're like that sometimes. Like, not in the sense that we hear the exact words from each other, but there are so many times, and like 90% of the day yesterday was like, oh my gosh, this thing, like, oh, I had this thought, or like, oh, what if we go do this? And I was like, I was just thinking that. It was literally in my head just now. And it
Yeah.
wasn't like word for word what I was thinking, but and same with her. Like she'll have moments where she was like, well, what if we do this? And I was like, I was just thinking that. Or like I would say this, she's like, I was just thinking that. And
Yeah.
it's not word for word, but it's the idea and the concept that we like hear from each other.
Yeah. And
And
go ahead. No, give me more.
and
Tell
so
me more.
we were like at dinner and I was like, why don't we practice this? Like, okay, what am I thinking right now? And then she would like try to say what it was. And she didn't do very well when I tried it. But then she tried it. She was like, okay, what am I thinking right now? And I said Sea World. And she was thinking Star Wars, and it was SW. And I
Yeah.
was like, okay, what if it was like Swill was? Like, I kind of got the bulk of it. Like it was kind of similar. I got
But again,
90% of the way
that's
there.
the moment where you're like testing, right?
Yeah.
Instead of like trusting. And so I think, it's like it would be interesting for you to do kind of more like what that chick on the socials did, which was
Oh
like
yeah.
Natalie, 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 and see like what, right?
Yes.
Um, yeah. So, but you and I do that sometimes too. I'm like, hey, blah blah blah. You go, oh yeah, I was thinking that, da 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 da. And so I
Hmm.
think it's, you know, all of these things. Here's the interesting thing. What if all of these things, intuition, telepathy, all of the ways that you receive it and the creation, like that's our natural gifts,
Hmm.
right? So instead of our listeners thinking like, I got to get there, like that's your natural presence. Like energy is the natural presence. Energy
Hmm.
is the natural exchange, right?
And
And
it's not special to just some group of people, or only some people can be psychic. Like
yeah,
everyone has these gifts.
yeah.
Everyone's natural capacity is
Yeah.
this.
Yeah. And that was like when we go back to like I mean, I've been working with groups of people. I started with private clients and then I worked with groups of people. And the first program I did was like mystery school. That was like
Hmm.
the first one. Because I was like, it's kind of a mystery what people get when they work with us, right? And that was totally true, right? It's like if you open up your intuitive gifts, kind of your life path changes, right? You're like, I
Hmm.
want lots of money, but then what shows up is like something even more magical than just money. And so it was mystery school. And then we went into the self mastery program, the energetic self mastery program, because it was about energy, right?
Hmm.
And the energetics and mastering the energetics and mastering your energetics and mastering the energetics of space. time, dimensions, reality, like mastering all of that and knowing that we're energetic beings and leaning into the energy of that and honoring the energy. It's like, that was like taking it beyond. And then I created like the beyond human method. Like the methodology is about living beyond human limitations. And right. And like, that's all you and I ever talk about. It's like, well, what the fuck is the human limitation? Well, then why are we honoring that? Because you honor that, you're going to get more limitation. Like, might as well live beyond the limitation, live beyond the humanness, right? Because the human is just so limited. The human is like the fear-based and logic and everything else, right? And then it's like, and then that accesses the divine, like the divine self-mastery skill set, like leaning into your divinity, the mastery of self, the mastery of the divine, right? And so all of that, you know, it's all similar stuff. It just has different titles, but it's mostly about like, fucking stop limiting yourself. Like your actual natural essence is multi-dimension, you know, if you so choose.
Awesome. Well, before we close out the episode for today, I have two questions from the community.
All right.
So, first one is who or what, because let me preface before I ask this question. If people haven't heard any of our other episodes or people don't know your backstory, you've had a lot of hardships, would you say? Trauma, hardships in your past.
Trauma, hardships, yeah, for sure.
You had bipolar alcoholic mom. You grew up where gangs would fight each other on your street corner. You had
That big barrel
SA.
of
You
like
had
shit peanut butter from like, you know, the whatever, the free tank. They're like, here, have some peanut butter. You're like, that tastes like ass. Can I get some Jeff? No.
so you didn't have the best of circumstances growing
Yeah.
up, and any one of them could have put you on a different path. You slept with a knife under your pillow.
Yeah, early 20s was
Yeah.
the knife experience.
So the question is, who or what inspired you to not follow the path of victimhood?
Mm, you know, this is so funny. It's gonna be like, you're not gonna even anticipate what I say next, and you know me.
I'm on the
There's
seat of
two
my pants.
things. Well, here's something interesting. There's two things. I think there's something innate and natural with people where at those trajectories you could go down two paths. You just could, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I think that's it, and maybe I did start to go down the negative path. Like middle school was a real shit show. I mean, I was stealing things out of cars. I was vandalizing cars. I was stealing things out of a school. I got caught with a pack of cigarettes at school. They got, you know, whatever, when they're like, you're out. That's what I got on the last day. They were really showing me. So, I mean, I was on that path. I knew this was the thing. I knew intuitively I didn't want to be on that path. I knew I wanted something else, but I was stuck because you keep seeing the same people all day long. Like dropping acid freshman class in biology, and you're like, I don't want to hang out with those people, but I'm going biology class with those people. Like, what the fuck? So, a big move helped because I actually redefined who I was. So for parents, if you're like worried about big moves for kids, sometimes it's the best thing. That's my fucking personal opinion on that. But I also this is the part that you're going to be like, what? So Uncle Georgelle and Aunt Liz got married when I was young. And I remember watching Aunt Liz, and she was kind of bold in like how she functioned and operated. And I remember emulating parts of her in my like younger days, like that boldness, right?
Oh yeah, you've said that before,
Yeah,
that she's been like an inspiration to you.
yeah, and that's why part of our part of our alignment module is at find somebody or something to emulate, like really embody that.
That's funny because Dad didn't like Aunt Liz very much.
Go figure.
Go figure how that worked out.
But I think there's like, you know, they've said twins, you could put twins in the same situation, they go down different paths, right? I don't think there was anybody that inspired me. There wasn't like a person inspiring me. I was surviving for a lot of that, like the first 20 years. I mean, I was just in survival mode and I survived what I could. But I think there's like this place of, when I was 16, I also went to church. And I enjoyed going. It was a Lutheran church, by the way. I interviewed all the churches. I went to all of them. One of them was spouting about the devil, and I was like, not my church. The Lutheran church had an energy about it. And it like we had female pastors. They looked like they were lesbians, quite frankly. I don't know if they were or not. It was a long time ago. I don't think they were out, but we had lesbian pastors, and it felt like when I was there, I felt love. And so I could get a resonance of what that love was. And I would cry in the pew. And that was at 16. And it was like, I got my driver's license. I wanted to do that. And I think there was always like, there's an inner knowing if you guys really tap into it. Like there's an inner knowing. So I could read the Bible and I could hear Christ consciousness, not religion. And I could be in church and I could feel love, not indoctrination. And that's like inner knowing work. And then when I got to college, I went to a Lutheran church. And that was right when Clinton scandal with Monica Lewinsky happened.
Oh, yeah.
And the pastor was like, the Bible says we need to honor our kings and leaders. And I was like, fuck, what? This is not my church.
Interesting take.
Not my church. Not my church. So the distinction of like what is true has always been very centered for me. And I've done some crazy ass motherfucking things too. Like I have yelled at men on the street that probably could have gotten me killed, like really, somebody who was talking to my friend the wrong way about her boobs. And I like pulled around and I was like, what the fuck are you talking to my friend about this? And I was like, I think you owe her an apology. And mind you, I was like 16 in like downtown Phoenix. A much older Black man was like doing this. I mean, this is shit that would scare people. And I was like, I think you owe her. And I was like, why are you talking about her like that? Like, I think you owe her an apology. Like, where does that come from? So I'm also very fiery. That's just kind of my nature. So I think there's like nature. I think there's a who do you want to be? And then I think there's a resonance in the background. And if you honor all of that, I think you find the fierceness. And so I don't have that like one person, because I think we're filled with the gods and goddesses and Christ consciousness and, ascended masters, and we can pull from everything. Right. I think there's like an inner compass that we all have. And I think the more that you like sit still and listen, you'll find it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
One other one kind of coincides with that last question. What is the biggest transformational lesson that you've embraced?
One?
That's a loaded question.
The biggest transformational lesson. I think if I have to give one sentence, you're the creator of your reality. That'll transform your whole life if you fucking let it, because there's not one thing that doesn't show up that I don't go, oh, I created this. Let's find out why. Right. And that's what we try to do with our clients, right? Is to have them see like you're creating the reality. If you don't like it, you can change it, And so that, right. So the previous question was really about victimhood and power. That's really what that person was asking. Like I could have gone down victimhood, but I really went through power change. And the perspective eventually, after all the personal growth and development, is like you're creating the reality. So if you don't like it, you can change it. And if it's happening, why? And what does it mean about your path? And like those things really illuminate the next steps, right? Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I think that's a great last takeaway from you, don't you think?
I think so. I mean, geez.
Loaded answer.
I mean, that was like a big one.
Take that and run with it for a week and see where it
Those were
goes.
2 big questions. I know. Y'all can build your whole next week around those 2 questions. That's for sure.
Oh my God. Totally. All right, well, we're going to close out the episode today. Tamara will not be on with us next week. I have a special guest coming, Miss Maureen Webb. She is a human design expert. We'll be hearing about her expertise. She'll be doing a human design reading on me. That'll be super
Yay,
fun.
fun!
hmm
Can't wait.
Can't wait. All right, we will see you all next week. Thanks for being on with us. Keep making magic, y'all. Thanks so much for tuning in with us. We know that time is a precious resource, and we're grateful you'd spend an hour of yours with us, shifting your perspective and expanding in your divine feminine power. If today's conversation resonated with you, help us grow. Rate the show, subscribe, and keep following for more. Remember, we're here every Tuesday with new episodes. But until then, find me on LinkedIn. It's my favorite way to connect. Want to dive deeper into the work? Start with our training series, The Sacred Success Code. Specifically designed for women to reclaim their time and energy, this is a great first step toward divine success without sacrifice. Links are in the description. And if you're ready to work with Tamara and I on a personal, deeper level in our 12-month flagship program, email me. Have any questions you want us to answer on the next episode? Email me. Until next time, keep honoring your divine feminine magic.